Hi, everybody. This is Patty. Welcome to the witching hour. Yes, that hour of the day when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some beautiful, very goddess like magic for you today. I'm just so impressed every time I see her. I love this girl. She is a costume designer, she is a paranormal research and investigator. You might even know her as Holly Weird Paranormal, the one and only Tammie Merheb-Chavez. What just fell off behind me? Oh, you have ghost action going already there. Let me, let me, Tammie Merhab-Chavez. What's coming up? Welcome, Tammie.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Patty. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, it is so good to have you on. You're one of my favorite people, even though we even see each other well, however many times a year. It's great. And you knocked my book down. That was good.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't even
I know.
touching it. You're
Birthday goddess energy, probably.
birthday, yes. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. So you are, for anybody who doesn't know, you're a costume designer by day, which is magic in itself, and a very well-known, very up there paranormal researcher and investigator. So how did you fall into this strange, interesting, and weird world of ours? Has it been a lifetime thing or?
Actually, yes. I get my humble beginnings from New Orleans. I'm originally from New Orleans and I come from that little spooky, weird city. And I always felt like a connection there, a very much spiritual connection. And how I got into costuming is through theater. So I started working in a lot of theaters in New Orleans. And of course, a lot of them are haunted. And I had my first paranormal experience in a haunted theater in New Orleans. I saw a full body apparition. And I really thought it was someone that worked in the theater. And when I approached the women about this gentleman that I saw dressed in his theater blacks, they were like, Tammie, that is Bob. I'm like, oh my God, you gave him a name? They're like, who's Bob? Who is this person? They're like, Tammie, Bob died years ago. He was our lighting designer. And ever since then, he appears to people who are just starting work in this theater. So it's like an initiation. You saw Bob likes you, so you're good. And I was like, oh my God, this catapulted me, really pushed me into understanding what we're truly dealing with.
That is awesome. And you are, I mean, again, got to work together a few times and it's amazing. You are really gifted yourself. I mean, no, you don't say yourself as a psychic this, but you are super intuitive. You are super gifted yourself. So why do you think that is? Because we big in life, theaters are so often haunted. What do you think that is?
Well, it's definitely a place where artists like ourselves, I mean, everyone has an inner artist. We are conduits in a way. There's so much emotion and energy that is shared on, a theater stage, and that kind of stays there and absorbs in the wood, in the seats, and everything. And I mean, a lot of course, like being an Aquarius, for like a lot of my friends are Aquariuses and they're in theater, there's an energy with Aquariuses. And it definitely, like, you feel that in the stage whenever they take the stage and they make their presence known. It's very magical. But that's another thing. Theaters are historical. Theaters absorb all that energy, and theaters are known to really be active because of that. So that's what I really think it could be.
I love that. Yeah, and again, it is the artist brain, the right brain people that seem to go into it. Your doggy behind you is moving around in
Oh yeah,
circles.
that's
Yeah.
Otto.
Hi, Otto. Hi, Otto. For
There
anybody watching,
he
that's
is.
Otto. Just
Yeah,
moved
that's
to a
my
more
new little
comfy
boxer
spot.
boot. There he is. He's like, I'm going to move because I want to be a part of this as well.
Good. That is good. Anyway, so you've been doing a lot of work with another mutual friend of ours, Spooky Foodie, correct? Haven't you been
Absolutely.
doing some stuff with her? So tell us about that. You're like well, I know you're started out in New Orleans, but right now you're a very LA girl. What are some of your
Hmm.
recent places or haunts? Anything you want to talk about there?
Oh, yes. Well, speaking of Spooky Foodie, we did a huge investigation at the Whiskey A Go Go and the famous Rainbow Bar and Grill. So she got in with the people at Rainbow, and it was her and another friend of ours, Zachariah the Witch, and they were able
I
to
know
go.
and like Zachariah too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they were able to go in and do this amazing investigation. She brought me the second time to bring in like a fresh pair of eyes, specifically to the Whiskey A Go Go. And there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of stuff there. We believe that it's also due to the owner, the former owner's wife that passed away years ago, and she's still watching the place. A lot of women work there, and we think like she's really watching out over the women there, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome. Again, another theater type place, music venue, same thing,
Mhm.
artists, and that's good. But
Exactly.
yeah, I have not done either of those places. Which do you think is more haunted, the Rainbow or the Whiskey?
The Rainbow for sure. It was a place that was
Really?
originally, yeah, it was an originally it was an Italian restaurant, and Italians and even mobsters would come in there and hang out. So there was a lot of like gangsters. I would hang out predominantly around Sunset, and mainly, at the time it was, I can't remember the name of the restaurant. It just slipped my mind, but it they would hang out there often and sometimes do their dealings. And at one point, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio had their first date in that location, and they still have the booth where they sat. So it's really, really crazy. And I think years ago, they found a secret room in a basement where the gangsters would hang out, and Lord knows what they would do. There was a table and chairs and other pieces of paper on this table that they were like, oh, this is this secret room that they would meet up and have their meetings. So Lord knows if Mickey Cohen made his way there and did some dealings around that area too.
That's amazing. I didn't know that at all. So that is
Hmm.
good.
Oh yeah.
So did you get any gangsters?
Yes, when I went into the vampire lair, there's an area on the second floor. It's called the vampire lair, and it was it's like a little room, and it was a club that Lemmy and other rockers, Ozzy Osbourne, and so much more, they created this little club there. And it's a very eerie location. It's very dark. And I was told to sit in this room, and I kept on seeing what looked like an apparition of a man sitting right next to me. And what was so unique about him is like I knew he wasn't of this era. He was dressed so nicely. He had a little like coat over his shoulders, his little hat, and he was sitting cross-legged, but he was like kind of eyeing me. And it felt
Hmm.
so uncomfortable. I'm like, I want to leave now. Like this, I don't know. They were like, what do you see? I'm like, I see a man sitting here right next to me, and he's just observing me, and he is dressed, it looks like he's from the 30s or 40s, but he's just sitting there, just chilling with me and just looking at me. And I just immediately left. I'm like, that's a little too much. So it's a lot of activity there. And they collected a lot of apparitions that are there too.
That's amazing. Will people be able to see that online somewhere or
Yeah, so Spooky
video?
Foodie has the video, both of the videos of the rainbow and whiskey on her YouTube at Spooky Foodie. And I think in October, her and Zachariah are doing a dinner and investigation out of the rainbow. So you could find it on
Wow.
Eventbrite. You could pay the fee to go in, have a good meal, hear some ghost stories, and investigate in some of the hot spots in the restaurant.
Oh, how fun. So, okay,
Hmm.
you said you got scared and you wanted to leave. You're from New
Yes.
Orleans, you're definitely you're an equipment girl. Do you have certain things like protection methods? I know you have a nice, beautiful spirituality about you as well. Do you have a like go-to thing when you get scared, or do you go to,
Yeah,
what's your
actually,
protection?
I close my eyes. I close my eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and I really call upon my ancestors and my spirit guides. I imagine, a big ball of light, like protecting me. Almost knocked out my drink. And also, after every investigation, I spray myself with Florida water and light some Palo Santo, and I thank my guides. I thank my ancestors and the energies that I was hoping to interview during the investigations at these locations. But I just always remember like the most important thing is to always be grounded and just to think positive.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and I love Florida water, and I love Palo
Hmm.
Santo. Those are two of my go-tos as well as the light and spirit and working with our ancestors and guides. So we're very much the same. I worked with somebody the other day. It was their first time doing something, and we got insane, insane things. And I'm like, I promise you're not bringing it home. We closed everything down, but he's like, it's like less fear. We need a little less fear here. So cute. So, Do you think, I mean, I could see how really intuitive you are. You are seeing spirits. I know you're equipment girl. We want to talk about that too. Did you remember doing that when you were a kid?
No,
Was
not
that something, or
really.
you just waited until you were grown up and going into costuming and hanging out in haunted theaters? Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a maybe it's a thing that I got from my grandmother. That's what my sisters and I really think. My grandmother was very special and also very spiritual too. And we always felt that she had abilities but never really talked about them. She feared them a bit. And my sister has, my younger sister has abilities like she gets physical pain or she feels certain things. I know that when we went to a museum in New Orleans, the museum had the second level, and my sister started to taste what was like a cigarette smoke or something, tobacco, and then she got a massive headache. And when we went down and talked to the gentleman about what we felt, I asked him, "Is this place haunted?" He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "What did you feel on the second floor?" And we said, "Oh, we tasted and smelled like cigarette smoke, and my sister had a massive headache." To the point where we had to walk out. The owner and manager told me, "Oh, there is a ghost on the second level. We call her Peanut, or the cigarette ghost." And I think it was like years before the museum opened. It was supposed to be a day spa. Katrina hit, and then they ceased all operations. And so it turned out that they found the body of a gutter punk slash transient, and it was a young girl. And according to locals, they called her Peanut. And she was pretty much, a drifter around the city. And when they found her, they found Marlboro Reds by her body. And it turned out that after autopsy work, they found out that she had died of a brain aneurysm. So when people go on the second steps of this one property, they feel a massive headache, they smell or taste tobacco. So it was really, really interesting to have collected that. And that is something that I know, oh, we share that. We share those types of clairs. And it's really interesting how it hits us differently. Now the place is called the Mortuary Mansion, and it's an interactive haunted house, but it's a haunted house within a literal haunted
Haunted
house.
house.
So
That
that's
happens
what's,
often, I think. I think
oh
that
yeah,
happens often.
as we've
Like
seen at
Penhurst.
Penhurst. Yes,
Penhurst, because a
yes,
haunted house, and they are a haunted house. We got to see each other
exactly.
there a little bit, passing in the night, passing through the
Oh
rain.
yeah, it was
But that
busy. It
place,
was really busy.
it was
Mhm.
busy, and I'd never been there before. I mean, that was my bucket list. Always heard about Penhurst, and never been. So, wow. I did spend
Yeah.
2 nights in the basement of the coldest, darkest building, just like
Oh
so
my
cool.
goodness. Yeah, that was the
But
night they had opened two additional new buildings. So they
yes,
originally had like what, six or seven, and now they had eight or nine. And they allowed us to go and investigate for almost 8 hours. It was
I
intense, but it was so amazing.
so intense. Yes, I was one of
Hmm.
those never before open, so it was like new ghosts, kind of like, who are you? Well, who are
Hmm.
you? Ah.
Yes.
But yeah, that place was wild. So hope to go there again next year. You have some Paracons coming up too, don't you? Aren't you doing one in California, the Gold Country one?
Yeah, it's a new one. I think they've been around for maybe a few years, or I think this might be a new one and they're test driving it. But Gold Country is in Jackson, California. It's by some old mines. It's in a little haunted town. It has a lot of activity. And I will be one of the speakers, and it's going to be pretty, pretty fun. It's the weekend, I believe. Oh, it's in October. I have to double check the dates. But if you go on goldcountryparacon.com, you'll see like the speakers, where it's held, the dates, but I do believe it's in October.
Good. And that, I mean, I don't know where Jackson is, but I've been a few of those mining tools like Nevada City, Mokelone Hill, where a few different places. That is a
Yeah.
very highly charged area, so it's probably
Mhm.
somewhere near there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun. So anyway, we have the first time we worked together, we were at Scott's Museum, wasn't it? Because I remember you were the equipment girl. Nobody else had equipment, and you had everything. So you both
Yes.
have the tech side of things as well as the intuitive side of things.
Yes, that's
So
true. We did what is it? Oh my gosh, it was a museum. What was the name of the museum?
I'm
The
blanking
Dearly
too.
Departed. The Dearly
Dearly,
Departed Museum. I was thinking
Yes,
about a different
because
name, but it's The Dearly Departed. And I do know that he's going to look into possibly opening up another one, maybe where he is living right now. But yeah, that was a crazy museum that had
that was
everything.
crazy. They literally had the which blew me away, the Jane Mansfield car. That's what I remembered, where she was decapitated, and like, wow, the whole car in the place. So yeah, so you again, you have tech, you have equipment versus some of us who, you know, fall down on a K2 meter. Do you have favorite things that like you used to like favorite uh, equipment that you like to use on investigations or don't
I
like?
like, yes, actually, I do have one that I absolutely love. I'm making my equipment fun and quirky, just like my personality when I go in, because everybody's so serious with their black, right? But I have this new REM pod that I've been using, and it is really fun to use, especially at Penhurst when we investigated Candyland. That's the area with the kids and everything. And this worked very well. And it's a REM pod. And of course, let me turn it on. See, it has the antenna. And it's just based off of the mystery machine. It's really cool. There's a gentleman that makes these types of REM pods, and his shop is on Etsy, and it's called Tim's REM Pods. And it's a really fun shop. He has Annabelle the doll as a REM pod, the Ecto One as a REM pod. It's really cool. So I highly recommend that you go and support him.
That is adorable, and I think there's truth to that. That looking too space age and is off-putting to some spirits. I have a couple things like a K2 that looks like an old-fashioned candle, and then a couple sugar
Yeah.
objects that look like. I think spirits, especially kid spirits, they're gonna go like this to see a van like that. How cool that! I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like that. That
Yeah,
is
it's fun.
really cute. Yes.
Yeah, it was definitely fun when we used it in Candyland. I don't know if you remember. Did you ever set foot in Candyland at
I never
Penhurst?
got to go to Candyland. I
It
never
was
did, 'cause
intense.
that's what I heard. I think that might have been the most intense play. That's what I was hearing, because people walking around and they would go to the different areas and stuff. And I think that was a hot spot. That must have been really a hot spot. And mine
Oh
was
yeah.
just freezing. No, it was active too, but it was,
Wow.
yes.
We could have
Yeah.
stopped there. It was pretty warm that night. A little
Was
humid.
it?
It was pretty humid.
Not,
Yeah. I mean, the basement, when we went to the basement in the admin building in Tanacum, and I think it was the Mayfair, like it was very cool. We kind of didn't want to leave because I mean, it was humid and a little sticky that night. But yeah, I mean, if we knew when a spirit was around, you felt that cold spot.
yeah, ours are really, I'm always cold anyway, but ours never did. We were in the basement of one of the brand new, just opened old buildings. Um,
Hmm.
just wet and cold, but it was active. It was
Yeah.
definitely active and things.
That's what I
So
heard.
what is your, yeah, since you've been a lot of places, you travel the world and you do things. What is your most either spooky place or active place or weird place that you've been?
Oh my goodness, there's several. I mean, I just came back from Gettysburg too. I traveled to Gettysburg, and that place, you could just feel it. And it's really interesting because a lot of the locals don't like to talk much about the ghost stories. And I noticed that like a lot of the locals like to be more invested in the history than ghost stories, but the ghost industry is definitely thriving there. And I mean, everybody has a ghost story in Gettysburg. Everyone has come out with a ghost story. And I think the one thing I experienced there, I was staying in a haunted bed and breakfast. It was the Tilly Pierce house. And the room that I was staying in, people see an apparition of a little girl. And I think one night I woke up and it sounded like someone was tapping on my bathroom door. And I was like, okay, I need to go to sleep. Please don't touch me. Please don't wake me up. But it worked. So I heard like what sounded like a little, like it was like a little tapping on my bathroom door, and it kept on waking me up. And it got to the point where I had to say, okay, enough is enough. I need to go to sleep. And then it stopped. Surprisingly, it stopped. I did investigate the Roosevelt Bridge, and around 2:30, it was a group of us. We were sitting there quietly during a EVP session, and we hear pops. It sounded like cannon fire. It sounded like bullets, like pop, 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 boom. And I looked at the guide and I was like, is there any fireworks celebration? She's like, no, not for 2 months are we going to have our festival here. But that is obviously, those are, residual sounds. Those are the sounds of battle because we're right next to one of the battlefields here. And I was like, oh my God, that's what everybody talks about, are the residual sounds of war going on. So that was really interesting. And that entire city, who it definitely is active.
So anyway, one thing I like that you bring a sense of levity and a sense of humor to things, quirkiness, because you are quirky. I'm a little
Yeah.
quirky too. I think that is what's kind of needed in the paranormal field, as well as more women. More women. Again, you're a woman, I'm a
Absolutely.
woman, which is great to bringing a whole other thing. So have you noticed that activity seems to be on the increase everywhere? Everywhere.
Hmm.
So what do you think that
Absolutely.
is? Do you think it's just where our world is? Or I always say it's because we're going into the age of Aquarius and it's a different kind of whole energy, I don't know.
Absolutely. I feel that it's definitely getting weird, like in all sorts of climates, specifically, political climates too, that we're experiencing right now. But also because,
Yeah.
the paranormal is no
Yeah,
longer
I definitely, the world is off balance. The world is all
very
messy.
much so.
And um but more and more, because I do a lot of house clearings, energetic house clearings, and I'm doing more now than I have ever done. It's just like,
Mhm.
okay, whether it's a mansion over here or somebody's little apartment over here, it's just lots more haunted places to go look at, I guess. So,
Exactly. Plus also the paranormal is not like taboo anymore. It's like really in now. It's in. It's very congested with content creators, investigators, and new groups. And I feel like people are becoming more and more open to the paranormal. So now I think people are starting to see and sense things a little more.
I think so too, and you see how it's going out and more mainstream, and TV goes up and down and all sorts of things. But I have a
Hmm.
theory on that. I've said it before. Because the world is scary, we know that the world is scary. It's always been scary, but now it's scary, bombarded 24/7 with media. You can't get away from it like you used to
Yeah.
could. And people traditionally have always gone back to their faith, going, yeah, I'm going back to church, I'm going back to temple. That's not holding up for everybody. So therefore the increase in more alternative belief systems, new age, paganism, witchcraft is the largest growing um,
Yep.
religion in America right now. But I think there's still a whole group of people like, I don't want religion and I don't even want that woo woo spirituality
Yeah.
stuff. I'm just scared and I want to know if we get blown up tomorrow that I'm going to be okay. And they want to go on a ghost hunt. They want to discover the paranormal. Again, it's like the new religion for people who don't want religion. I see it more and more all the time.
Hmm. Exactly.
So wild.
It is.
Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your podcast. Now, you mix true crime and paranormal, correct?
Yes, I do. We talk about the true crime in around Los Angeles or California for that matter. And a lot of times when it comes to true crime cases, there's a paranormal association. So we like to dive on those cases. We also bring other individuals and other locations that not a lot of people know about that are haunted in and around Los Angeles. So we definitely go off the beaten path and talk to, anyone that is willing to share their experiences or places that they know are haunted.
That's fabulous. And everybody loves true crime. So now true crime and
Oh.
mixing with the paranormal, that nothing better. Nothing
Yeah.
better.
And Los Angeles has a
Anyway,
lot of that.
we have a lot of that. We have a lot of
Yeah.
that. And I think, do you notice the difference? Because again, you are very intuitive and you're very sensitive. The
Mhm.
different energy of every place you go, like New Orleans, of course, does not feel like LA. LA there's such different, and I'm sure again, Gettysburg is one thing, the Northern California stuff is one. I think that is all increasing too. The definitive difference in the energy of each space.
Oh,
So
yes.
whether that's the veil
Especially,
thinning.
yeah, it could be other things that, the city or the state is going through. I mean, every time I go to New Orleans now, I feel like it's heavier. It's so much heavier. Even people that are not into the woo woo or the spiritual or anything, like they even, I don't know, when we left, you just felt sense of heaviness when even when you're in this, and something that I've definitely felt within time over there.
That's yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna be there, or maybe I was just there, depending on where this is. So I'm getting ready to go too. But yeah, everything's feeling more intense, more intense. Whatever that particular feeling is,
Yeah.
good. So I one of my favorite shows. I work with Zach a lot. So tell me about your ghost adventures.
Yes, for a year, I was assisting the producers of Ghost Adventures with locations that they could travel to, new locations that the guys can definitely venture and find out if it's haunted or not. And I worked with them on the Barclay episode and also the Heritage Square, which is my episode that I starred in because I worked in film and I also did costumes on set at Heritage Square. I was based out of there for a month working in one of the haunted houses. And I experienced a couple of things in one of the houses. My crew experienced a lot of things in different houses on that property. And they invited me to interview, and I got to meet everyone. And everyone, did such a good job, and they're a pleasure to work with.
They are a pleasure to work with.
Mhm.
I've never had a negative experience. I've never had a bad experience. It's always an adventure. It's always in the moment. So that is awesome. That is thrilled that you did that. So, all right, where can people, because they're going to want to know you, they're going to want to know your podcast. Where can people find you? Where can people find out where you're going to be appearing, about your podcast, your social media? Let us
Of
know.
course. Yes, you can find me at Hollywood Paranormal at Instagram and Facebook. I'm also on TikTok. You can follow a lot of my journeys and series. Currently doing one on New Orleans, and that is at that's at LA Girl. Sorry, Haunted LA Girl. And you can also find me at Gold Countries Paracon in Jackson, California. And if you go to goldcountryparacon.com, you'll find out more information if you're in and around California during October.
That sounds good. So you guys like her, follow her, check her out, watch her podcast, go to Gold Country. You're going to love her like I do. So thank you. Any last words you want for anybody? My people are going to absolutely love you. Anything you want to say about
Stay
anything?
haunted and always stay weird because
Perfect.
everyone is weird. Yeah, everything's weird. Embrace it.
We need we need more weird. I love weird. So
Yes.
thank you everyone. Thank you, Tammie, for
Thank
bringing your
you.
magic to the witching hour. Hey everybody, this is Patty. Welcome to the Witching Hour. I have some beautiful mystical magical magic for you today. She is a paranormal researcher and investigator, the one and only Tammie Merheb-Chavez. What are we going to talk about today, Tammie?
We're going to talk about haunted New Orleans, my journey in the paranormal, where I've investigated recently, and working with Ghost Adventures.
You don't want to miss it. See you on the Witching Hour.